How many millions and millions and millions of dollars go through rehab clinics across the United States? Okay, methadone clinic, same thing. A lot of good people, good intentions, but how much money goes through the methadone clinics across the United States? Medications for addiction recovery, Suboxone, methadone. We've got a bunch of medications that are used for addiction recovery, which are prescribed to these people. You know, how much money goes in and circulates around the concept of medication for drug rehabilitation. Addiction research and grants. How many billions of dollars go through addiction research and grants? Go to these companies that do addiction research and take grants from the government. How many billions of dollars come from private foundations to support research and recovery research? Okay, pharmacology development and research. How much money again goes through these institutions to provide pharmaceuticals and do research on pharmaceuticals and do testing on pharmaceuticals that ultimately comes to the street or comes to the pharmacy for purpose of rehabilitation. Okay, not only that, but think about how much money goes through the drug trade itself. How many billions and billions of dollars is circulating our streets because of the drug trade itself, which apparently the CIA is totally okay with and actually helping out. So, if you look at all these institutions and how many things are economically interwoven into the drug trade and the causes and the effects of drug addiction, if everybody recovered overnight, if addiction disappeared tomorrow morning, let me ask you, what would happen to our economy, right? I mean, we've got this entire economic tube just full of money going all over the place that is labeled addiction and drugs. And you cut that off and you're gonna definitely hurt our economic, I mean, we're already in trouble right now, right? Okay, well, I wanted to go over one last thing before I get back into the meditation. But now let me explain that what I've talked to you about tonight, we've got this big screen that I was talking about earlier, right, which is your consciousness. And you go back into the subconsciousness. I should have said this earlier, but the concept about tonight is that the screen I'm talking about is our social screen. And when we look up on the screen, our social consciousness projects. We've got terrorism, we've got murders, we've got gangs, we've got movie stars, and we've got this guy in the corner named Mr. Addiction, and he seems to be causing a lot of problem on the social consciousness screen. So the point about this talk tonight is opening that door and going back into the social subconscious. Instead of saying everything is this guy's fault, this big Mr. Addiction on the screen is causing all these problems, we need to stop for a second, step back, go through that door, and look at what the real cause for addiction is, instead of just pointing our finger at addiction. Okay? So related to the economic thing, we've got soldiers right now, as we speak, in Afghanistan, guarding Afghanistan's poppy fields. Okay? 90% of the world's heroin comes from Afghanistan. Okay? And we've got our soldiers, U.S. on their coats, over there with machine guns, protecting the poppy fields with specific instructions such as make sure you guard the areas with the large pods more than the areas that are skinned with smaller pods. So the official explanation for this that the United States government has told us is that our soldiers are over there protecting their poppy fields because we are protecting their economy from collapsing while we teach them how to grow corn and how to grow soybeans and all this other stuff. So think about this. If we're protecting Afghanistan from economic collapse because they're so tied in to the drug trade, how much more are we going to protect our own land from economic collapse because of the drug trade? Don't think it's not happening. It is. Look it up online. There's a plethora of pictures of United States soldiers happily guarding the poppy fields. Okay. So how do we deal with this? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we have all of these problems without telling you how we could possibly deal with this. I've got a lot of ideas. A lot of them would take a lot of time to explain without going over them in detail tonight. But the only way we can start dealing with this is with baby steps. We've had this happening for over 100 years, okay? It's not going to be a quick fix, but we've got to stop the decline. We've got to start coming back up. And this series, including tonight and the next 3, is going to teach everybody how to do that on a personal level, which will eventually have an effect on our social consciousness and hopefully begin to make a change. Okay. So on the social consciousness concept, so often we are so concerned about ourselves and about what we're doing in life and, you know, worrying about number one kind of stuff. But if we're really going to see addiction as a symptom instead of a disease and as a problem with how our society is run, we've got to start tackling it as a society, on a societal level, and not on personal levels anymore. So the concept is to begin to see our world as a single functioning organism, okay? And this is how we do it. Imagine you've got an infection, and you've got a white blood cell that's passing by the infection, and it's like, I'm late for work, I gotta keep going for work. He sees the infection and not cool with it. Whatever, he wants to keep doing whatever he wants to do. What's going to eventually happen, the infection's going to get worse and worse and worse, and if no, bodily, what's the word I'm looking for, devices begin to attack the infection, and it'll actually kill you. So how does that apply to real life? Well, how many times have we driven down the street and seen somebody on the side of the road with their blinkers blinking and thought, I'm waiting for work, if I'm late again, I'm going to get fired, I'm worrying about myself, I'm not thinking about anybody else, I'm dealing with this guy. Okay, how many times have we seen somebody in need and pass up the opportunity to help them without worrying, without even considering what he's going through? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, right? I mean, who hasn't done that? So as long as we begin to see things like that, as long as we begin to understand that we are literally a single organism living on this planet, and that we function together, and as we have blockages and problems, we have to help fix them. Even the small things, like somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road, or somebody that has tears in their eyes, and you just want to go up and say, are you alright? Okay? So my challenge to everybody here, and everybody that ends up seeing this, is to, next time you see somebody in help them. Don't think about yourself. I mean, obviously you don't want to walk up to somebody with a gun or something, trying to help a dude with a gun, because that's just a safety issue, but start to step outside of your comfort zone. Start to begin to help other people, and start to see how that begins to change you on the inside. Okay, so addiction is simply a symptom of something that is wrong with our society. It can be overcome on a single level. On a personal level, it can be overcome through meditation, through other things, but I'm going to focus on meditation for the rest of these talks. One thing I wanted to talk about tonight really quick was ibogaine. A lot of people, see, our society has this kind of stigma against hallucinogens, right? And ibogaine is probably one of the highest level hallucinogens that we have out there, aside from DMT. But what we forget to look at is the healing properties of hallucinogens. Okay, back in the 60s, there was a lot of studies done with LSD. And it turns out that LSD has actually helped a lot of people in the clinical studies through mental diseases and psychological diseases. Just because it is a drug, and just because it is hallucinogen, does not mean that it cannot be medication.